Is this the dagger?
G'day guys, JB here coming at you with another weekly review for the 23-24 NBA season. It's a bit later in the week when I'm releasing this, but now that I'm able to manage a bit more of my time and certainly able to manage a little bit more as to when I can and can't record, then the consistency again on these videos will resume. So we'll get into week 11. Some interesting results, some interesting teams making a move, particularly as you can see there on the right hand side of the screen over in the West. The East, well, they're still carrying on, ironically, despite not having their best player. A few other teams seem to be making a break. A couple of others, well, they are probably going to get caught in the dust. Some of the leaders really asserting themselves, and others who were really teetering are now starting to certainly make it or break it. Starting in the East, as always, with the Atlanta Hawks. 1-2 on the week, 15-12 on the season. They got a win against Philadelphia on the week, lost out to Orlando and Indiana. Best player in that period, Dejounte Murray, 26 points, 5 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 1.3 steals, and 2.3 turnovers a game. Shot 53.6 from the field, 53.3% from deep, and 71.4 from the free throw stripe. And the real question around Dejounte Murray is, where will he be come the trade deadline? Will he still be with the Atlanta Hawks? We don't know. Will he be with the San Antonio Spurs? That seems like it's highly unlikely, but it's certainly a conversation at the moment. One of the others as well, floating around with Golden State, is that he may end up over there as well. I'm not sure how they're going to do that, and whereabouts he fits in would be a really interesting move, but it would certainly be a real compliment defensively for the Warriors right now. We'll see what happens. That would certainly put Atlanta on the back burner, especially considering that Trae Young and Jalen Johnson are essentially the only people listed as untouchable right now for Atlanta. Over to Boston, 2-2 on the week, 29-9 on the season. The best team in the NBA went 1-1 against Indiana this week, got single wins against Minnesota and did lose out to Milwaukee. Best player in all of their games. Again, this guy played in all four. Jaylen Brown, 29 points, 6 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 0.5 steals and 0.5 blocks a game. He is right up there for me in the MVP conversation and certainly in all NBA form. Once again, 2.5 turnovers a game, 57.9 from the field, 50% from deep, 76.9 from the free throw line. I guess the question now for Boston is not if they will make the playoffs, not when they will qualify for the playoffs, but certainly who will they face to go through to the NBA Finals right now. They certainly still have to be the favourites. I mean, you've got two guys there that are in MVP conversation, that are in all NBA conversation. To me, the best duo in the league. Once again, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown continuing to play well. And that's not including the fact that someone like a Kristaps Porzingis has been playing really, really well and is almost a perfect fit for the team. You seem to go through all these guys all the time. Boston are just that good. The question is, though, can they do it in the postseason? Because that's when it's going to have to matter the most. They can't be falling short. They can't be giving up big leads. They essentially have to get the job done. Third time is a charm for this Boston team, you would think. Over to Brooklyn, 0-2 on the week, 16-22 on the season. Lost out to Portland and Cleveland. Mikal Bridges with a really big week, his best week so far as a member of the Brooklyn Nets. 34 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists a game, 0.5 steals, 3.5 turnovers, 47.7 from the field, 42.9 from deep, and 95% from the free throw line. It'll be interesting to see whether they can continue to compete, whether they can continue to try and be up there right around the 500 mark. I'm not too sure whether they will or not, but it'll be something they will want to look at and certainly something they'll want to consider. Will they look to make a trade move? I'm not too sure. How they bandy themselves around will depend on how close they are to 500. Honestly, Brooklyn are just one of those teams. They're either going to be there or they're not. Charlotte, they're definitely not going to be there. 0-3 on the week, 8-28 in the season. Lost out to Chicago, Sacramento, and San Antonio. Good to have LaMelo Ball back for them. Terry Rozier is continuing to be the best player for them this season. 28 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, 0.7 blocks, less than a turnover a game. Efficient scoring splits, particularly for the little guy as well. 47.8 from the field, 46.4 from deep, 90.9 from the free throw line. But there's nothing special about Charlotte this year at all. They're probably very thankful, particularly in the East, for Detroit and Washington. That would be the best way to describe Charlotte right now. They're not doing very well. It'll be interesting to see how they continue to push through now that LaMelo is back. Chicago 2-1 on the week, 18-22, and there's just something about them right now where they continue to push, continue to build, and look like a team. If they can get to 500 by the All-Star break, will be a team for others to really consider as they push through towards, after the All-Star break, and certainly looking to get everything into position heading into the postseason. Kobe White having a breakout year for them. 27.3 points, 4.7 rebounds, 6.7 assists, 0.3 blocks a game on 2 turnovers for the past week. 57.1 from the field, 56% from deep, and 80% from the free throw line. Of course, they beat Charlotte and Houston, lost out to Golden State. And there just seems to be little pieces here and there that are jumping in and out for Chicago, whether it's Kobe White, whether it's Andre Drummond, seeing a little bit of DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine trying to step up as well, Vucevic continuing to do his bit, Caruso still trying to stand out as well, and surprisingly Patrick Williams is even showing points. It's really weird for Chicago. They've just had these moments during the season where they've been absolutely boneheaded, look terrible, and need to blow it up. But then they seem to do this like they did last season, get on a run for about 10 days, and everyone goes, oh, geez, maybe Chicago's got it right again. We'll see how it goes. Of course, they did have the Ring of Honor ceremony, and there's been a heap of talk surrounding the Ring of Honor ceremony. I mean, I wouldn't have thought that it went down too well, as everyone is talking about, particularly with the wife of Jerry Krause. That was pretty distasteful, to be fair. But at the same time, you know, the booing did subside a little bit when she got onto the screen, and it wasn't directed at her. Not saying it's a mountain out of a molehill. I think there is still a little bit of perspective. Pretty disgusting to boo her, but a little perspective of where that emotion's coming from. Over to Cleveland, 2-0 on the week, defeated the Spurs, defeated Brooklyn, and a guy who just seems to be unsung this season. He's just getting it done, and I suppose because it's nothing overwhelming and he's not sitting at the top of the pile, there's no real consideration for him. But Donovan Mitchell, another busy week, 31.7 rebounds, 7.5 assists, 2.5 steals. It's the turnovers that get you 5.5 a game, but 45.8 from the field, 22.7 from deep. That's not ideal either, and 76.5 from the free throw line. Honestly, I think Donovan Mitchell's been one of the 4 best guards in the East this year. I would go as far to say that he's been the 2nd best guard in the East this year. And I love what Jalen Brunson's done. But if you're going to put it down to impact in wins, Donovan Mitchell's certainly going to be ticking a lot more boxes than people realise. I've got him as one of the starting guards in the East in the All-Star game. Now, I think Jalen Brunson will get it. There's way too many fans of the New York Knicks, and there's too much narrative around Jalen Brunson right now. And don't get me wrong, played really, really well. But I just think Donovan Mitchell's had a better season. And the fact that he's not doing anything overwhelming in comparison to what he's done in previous seasons is purely what the issue is there. So Cleveland continuing to tick along there. They still sit, anywhere between that 5 and 8 position there. In the East, they've got a little bit of work to do, but they're continuing to be a team that's still sitting up there and still in playoff contention. Detroit on the week didn't win a game. Once again, a 3-36 loss to Denver, Sacramento, the Spurs, and the Rockets. Jalen Duren trying to do his best, 18 points, 8.8 rebounds, 3.3 assists, 0.5 steals, and 0.3 blocks on 1.8 turnovers. Effective from the field, but Detroit just continuing to be the worst team that's ever played in the history of the NBA. Over to Indiana, 3-1 on the week, 23-15 on the season. Split their mini-series against Boston, also defeated Washington and Atlanta. And this all comes off the back of the fact that Tyrese Halliburton is out with injury. He's out with a hamstring strain, so it'll be interesting to see how the team continues to push through, but didn't seem to show too many weaknesses throughout the week, essentially, just because everyone's able to step up, play the role, and play it effectively. Benedict Mathurin, I think Ben Mathurin's going to stick at some point there. 19.3 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.3 steals, and 0.3 blocks a game. Less than 3 turnovers, 49% from the field, 35.7 from deep, 75.9 from the free throw line. He was my beast in the East. The only team to actually win 3 games. Did pretty well with that one there. Surprisingly, of course, Indiana 0-4, but 3-1 there for Indiana. Still ticking along, as I mentioned. We know Tyrese Halliburton. It will be interesting to see just how long it will be until that starts to drop out on them. Never know, they might continue to play well. Maybe it improves their defence, maybe it just shows others can step up, and who knows what can be utilised when Halliburton returns. But Mathurin, my player of the week. Again, the only player to lead a team at 2-3 wins, Ben Mathurin of the Indiana Pacers. Over to Miami, they had 2-1 on the week, 22-16 on the season. Wins against Houston and Orlando, lost out to Oklahoma City. And the guy who's taken the step for the Heat this year, and he's probably reached where we thought he wanted to be thereabouts. It's not going to quite be Kevin Garnett. It's going to be very hard to ever be Kevin Garnett. But just with his offensive prowess there and what he can do when he wants to put his mind to it. Bam Adebayo, 22.7 points, 11.3 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 0.3 steals, and 1 block a game, less than 3 turnovers, 57.8 from the field, 80% from the stripe. Perfect 80 there from the stripe. It's just really weird for Miami. They've gone through this patch, as I mentioned, where for about 3 or 4 weeks they just really couldn't do much and weren't having much impact. They're starting to get back on the winner's circle there. And there are other players stepping up as well. So Bam's obviously been the leader of that team. I think Bam's been one of the all-stars in the Eastern Conference this year. I think he's been one of the 5 best centres in the league this year once again. He's probably been taken over a little bit, though, by Domantas Sabonis. But, I mean, that's sort of not an insult considering the way Sabonis has been playing. But it is just, it's really weird. Some nights Duncan Robinson's having a really good look. Tyler Hero's having a good look. Jimmy Butler is having moments here or there as well. So, it's not as if it's just a one-man show anymore. You don't need to sit there and just be worried about whether Jimmy Butler's having a massive game. You don't need to sit there and worry about whether Bam is on defensively, because I think it's Bam's team now. And I think he showed that in the NBA Finals when he was clearly the best player. So we'll see with Miami. Again, 6 games above 500 in a really sturdy spot. They have a really nice home court advantage, and they just have this knack about them. It's really hard to write off a team that's made the finals twice in 4 years, one of them from an 8th seed. It's pretty simple from there. Milwaukee 1-2 on the week, 26-12 on the season. Got a win against Boston, lost to Houston and Utah, and Giannis just continues to plug away as the best power forward in the league. 32.3 points, 13 rebounds, 6.3 assists, 0.3 steals, and 0.7 blocks on 3.3 turnovers. I really think he's found his niche, and I really think the team has as well. There's a lot of talk about Milwaukee not looking right, but I don't know. I think that's just a lot of people who tend to want to see this narrative of Boston getting back to the finals and Boston winning a championship and this Boston core being rewarded, which they deserve to be. But to sit there and just say the Bucks aren't playing well, I think it's a real disservice to a team that has proven they can get it done in the postseason, compared to Boston, who have not proven they can get it done in the postseason there. 3.3 turnovers, not bad for the usage rate for Giannis, 62.1 from the field. What else were you going to expect? He's never been a great three-point shooter, and his foul shooting has improved throughout the season. Again, I don't think there's really a lot of panic required there. When you look at Milwaukee, they are 3 games back on Boston, but Boston's the best team in the NBA right now. To say Milwaukee's one of the options as the second best team in the league is not an insult either. You've got Milwaukee, you've got OKC, you've got Minnesota, and you've got Denver. And I think they're the only 5 teams that can win the title this year. And it's really still shaping up like that. We're nearly halfway through already. My God, we're nearly halfway through already. I think Milwaukee will be fine. Giannis is playing well. Dame's playing back into form. Has he necessarily been Damian Lillard? No. Do I think he's been good enough to be an all-star in the East? Probably. He's still there down the stretch. He's still scoring points. You've still got Middleton. You've still got Lopez. You've still got Portis. Plenty of options still available in Milwaukee. Over to New York, 2-1 on the week, 22-16 on the season. Defeated Washington and Portland during the week. Lost out to Dallas. Randall having a really nice run, continuing to be one of the 2 best players in New York, and I think that, again, you're starting to see the fruits of the labour of that trade, so to speak. Randall on the week, 30.3 points, 6.7 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal, 0.3 blocks on 2.7 turnovers, 50.8% from the field, 36.8 from deep, so that 3-ball improving slightly there for the big man, and 83.3 from the free throw line. New York have just been able to open up their offensive side of their game. Really simple, really easy. It's what happens when you give more possessions to your leading players. Happens on every team. Randall and Brunson are no exception to that. All of a sudden the defense has got a little bit better. Anunoby is reliable, and you've got all these other pieces around that are getting touches and scoring as well, and they're playing efficient defense as well. When you've got more options for talent to explode and you're able to refine where your possessions go, the team just gets better. That's not science, that's just common sense. I mean, you've only got to look on the other side of the ball there for New York. Hartstein's getting possessions, trying to get things done. You've also got Mitchell Robinson, who's still getting possessions. So, they've just refined their process. New York, I think they're a better team for it. Randall had a really good week. They're going to continue to push through. Over to Orlando, as I mentioned a couple of weeks back, I think they've gone, they've come back to the pack, so to speak, and I don't think this is any exception right here. 1-2 on the week, 21-17, so just that 4 games ahead of 500. But I think they've started to define who the man is on the team once again. So win against Atlanta, did lose out to Minnesota and Miami. Miami are on a run. Minnesota's one of the best teams in the league. But I think Paolo Banchero in the last month has really put his hand up and said, you know what, we do need a leader right now. I am going to be that person. I said it last year in his rookie campaign. I think Banchero has a shot at being a perennial All-NBA player for a decade. He is that level of player. He's averaged 26 points, 6.7 rebounds, 4.3 assists, 2 steals, 0.7 blocks, tad over 3 turnovers a game for the last week. It is the shooting that does worry me, and of course that's the difference between going 2-1 or 3-0 versus 1-2. 40.3 from the field, 33.3 from deep, and a dismal 58.8 from the free throw line. But Orlando seem to have a player that's stepping up and putting their hand up and say, hey, look, yep, I am the man of the hour. I am the leader of this team. It is young and we have plenty of opportunities and plenty of options, but I'm the man that's going to lead us. I'm the one that's going to go to the front of the pack, and I am going to take charge of the team, which is exactly what they need, because defensively they're fine to do it. They're a well-coached young unit, but they just need someone to stand up and be that number one option. I thought Banchero might be giving away to Wagner there, but he's not, which is always good to see. So he's having an impact. He's having a real dip, and I think he's going to be that man from here on in. How Orlando adapt to that offensively, we'll see. That'll be determined in their record, but it's good to see Banchero stepping up and stepping out. Philadelphia 1-2 on the week, 24-13, so they're 11 games ahead of 500. Clearly one of the 3 best teams in the East, but they are a standout 3, so they're going to have to do a little bit of work as well. They're going to have to get some consistency back into their lineup. Defeated Sacramento, lost out to Utah and Atlanta. Tyrese Maxey there for all 3 games. 27 points, 4 rebounds, 7.3 assists, 3.3 steals, and a block on 3 turnovers. That's really good by Maxey. Till you look at the fact he shot less than 40% from the field. And he's only a younger guy, and he's only really going to be probably in this sidekick role for another 2 seasons before he really blossoms to be that perennial 2 guard, that perennial combo guard threat as one of the better players in the league. He's going to be next to Embiid for a little while here. He'll have to play that Kobe-esque role, but it's until he can refine this efficiency when he's by himself that's really going to stand him out amongst his peers. So until he does that, he's probably going to be safer, just sheltered a little bit behind Embiid. Playing to an all-star level. I don't have him as an all-star, and I think that sort of is just purely because he's not leading teams. There are other guys that are leading teams that, are the number one option. It's as simple as that. It's not a diss against Maxey, but I just don't think that he's had the season in comparison to other members of the Eastern Conference from the guard position. And on top of that, he's clearly the number 2 option on this team. There's no debate. As far as the dominance of Embiid so far this season. Over to Toronto, 1-3 on the week. Defeated Golden State, but lost out to the Lakers, the Clippers and the Jazz. RJ Barrett really finding a home up there in Utah. He had a really efficient week. 22 points, 7 rebounds, 4.3 assists, 1 steal, 0.8 blocks, 2.3 turnovers, but 60.3% from the field, 52.6 from deep. Tremendous stuff there from RJ Barrett, 72.7 from the free throw line. I guess the question for Toronto right now is what is next for them? Do they continue to look for packages in amongst it for Pascal Siakam? What do they do with Scotty Barnes? How do they look to refine this team? Who knows? They'll probably I think they were robbed of a game against the Lakers. Their coach got done for that in an all-time rant. He was right, in my opinion. So it could have been a 2-2 week, but it wasn't. So they have to live with that 1-3 there. Now they've got to continue to live with some more trade talks and more package talks to see exactly how this team fires. Don't know what they look like at the end of the at the end of the trade period. I think they look like a very different team. How much of a different team, I don't know. And if they're backing in, then I'd say it's going to be a Scotty Barnes-led team. Not a bad thing. I just think he's probably a little too young. He's probably 2 years away from being the man on this team. So we'll see how they go. But RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly being second options there certainly won't hurt his case. We're trying to get a few more possessions under his belt as well. Finally, in the East, we go over to Washington, who didn't win a game on the week. Lost to New York, lost to Oklahoma City, lost to Indiana. We're never really going to be in contention there. Jordan Poole, with his best week as a Wizard, 20.7 points, 2.3 rebounds, 5.3 assists on 1.7 steals. Less than 2 turnovers, reasonably efficient from the field, 47.9% overall, 35 from deep. Not really liking the 69.2% from the free throw line. Washington are just very, very happy that Detroit and Charlotte exist. And certainly the fact that Charlotte are trying to compete with them as the second worst team in the East is helpful, because outside of that, they suck. They are an underachieving team. And particularly for guys like Poole and Kuzma, it's showing why they are out where they are and not sitting back as those second options they were on championship teams in previous times. Of course, as I mentioned there, my player of the week, my beast in the East for the Eastern Conference was Ben Mathurin, 19.3 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.3 steals and 0.3 blocks on 2.5 turnovers for the Pacers. 3-1 on the week. Efficient splits for him as well. Good to see Indiana getting back up and about there. And still playing really well despite the fact that they are essentially without the best point guard at the moment in the NBA in Tyrese Halliburton. And finally, looking at the top 10 of the East and where everyone sits. As I said, Boston, best team in the NBA. Milwaukee, second best team in the East, competing for the second best team in the NBA. Philadelphia, clearly the third best player in... best team, I should say, in the East. Pacers sitting at 4. I'm not shocked if they've still got this chemistry without their point guard. As I said, Cleveland have really been, taking a few steps, and that's why I've been rating Donovan Mitchell's game. They're at 5th. Miami at 6th. They're continuing to be thereabouts. New York up and down there at 7th. Orlando have come back to the Packers. I thought they would at 8. The Bulls at 9th and the Nets at 10th. And I just think the Bulls are going to be the team that are going to be the next ones to really crash towards that 500 mark and make things a lot more interesting there. So that is the Eastern Conference for Week 11 of the 2023-24 NBA season. Let's flip the script. Let's get over to the Western Conference, starting off with the Dallas Mavericks. 2-1 on the week, 23-16 on the season. Wins against Minnesota and New York. Lost out to the Memphis Grizzlies. But a guy who's having an absolutely beast of a run over the last couple of weeks and really making inroads towards the All-Star game in a late rush for selection for me. Kyrie Irving, 37.3 points, 6.7 rebounds, 6.3 assists, 3 steals, 1 block. Probably the best that Kyrie has looked consistently in any kind of patch for 2 weeks since he was in Boston. 3.7 turnovers, not ideal, but you've got to look at the splits, and this is what I've been hammering on about Kyrie when he's been on the floor for quite some time. 51.3 from the field, 56% from deep, and 90% from the free throw line. Kyrie Irving is an efficient scorer when he has the ball in his hands and has the opportunity to do so. Now, I don't know whether Kyrie's an absolute number 1 at winning you a championship, but he's a proven number 2, a very competitive number 2, and there's no reason that, he certainly couldn't look at doing it again if Dallas could get on enough of a run. It's going to take a lot to get Dallas on a run, but he certainly could be considered to be that second option on that championship scenario if it was to happen. Big ups to him. Dallas are looking better for it, and it's going to be a lot of comfort there for Luka Doncic as he continues to move forward and wants to return to the team. Denver 2-1 on the week, 27-13. Again, another squad competing for the second best team in the league. Just another team, again, that I think is going to be a championship contender. Of course, I continue to say it, just get them home court advantage in the playoffs. They'll be fine. They'll continue to compete. They've got the experience. It's something that their other 2 rivals right now don't have. 2-1 on the week, 27-13 on the season. As I said, defeated Detroit, New Orleans, lost to Utah. Jokic with a quiet week, but a quiet week meant 19.3 points, 9 rebounds, 12 assists. At centre. 12 assists at centre. 0.3 steals and 2 blocks a game, 3 turnovers per contest, or thereabouts. It was a little bit more than that there, 3.3 if we're going to be exact, but, why are we clutching at straws? 72.4 from the field, 66.7 from deep, 87.5 from the free throw line. Jokic, from an efficiency scoring standpoint, is on a Wilt Chamberlain level tear. Always seems to be one centre that this guy gets brought back to. Just saying. Something for people to think about again. Denver are all right. They're cruising. They're fighting for second best team in the league. They're one of 5 championship contenders. They'll be fine. They'll continue to push through. A team that isn't necessarily pushing through but has seen some upside over the last couple of weeks, the Golden State Warriors, 1-2 on the week, 18-20 on the season. So you've only got to look how close they are to 500. So they're still mildly competitive in that sense. Defeated Chicago after they booed Jerry Krause's wife, but lost out to Toronto and New Orleans. Klay Thompson with a bounce-back week and had probably the best week of his career for, well, certainly some time, probably dating back to his All-Star run in their continuous championship run from 15 to 19. 22.7 points, 3.3 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 0.3 steals and 0.7 blocks, 54.5 from the field, 51.7 from deep and 83.3 from the free throw line. When Klay's up and firing as that second option, there's nothing wrong with it, but the problem is Klay Thompson can't be consistently the second option anymore. He's been injured. He's been hurt. That's why he hasn't been able to do it. He's gotten older. He's missed time. He doesn't necessarily have the continuous reps on the body. What else do you expect from a guy who did an ACL, who did an Achilles? You know, outside of doing a quad, he's had 2 of the 3 major injuries to your leg, albeit a broken one. Being another option as well. Got to give the guy credit that he's still able to come out and still post a week, 22.7 points, 50% from deep, over 50% from the field. Got to give him credit there. For Golden State, they just need that one more piece. Again, talks of Dejounte Murray heading there. Potential talks of Pascal Siakam heading there. I don't know exactly how true any of this stuff is. It'll be really interesting to see exactly what goes on as far as a fit and how they look to work things out. For Houston, 2-2 on the week, 19-18 on the season. So again, continuing to be above 500. I can tell you now as a Rockets fan, I am happy with that. Especially when you see that we beat one of the best teams in the league. We beat the worst team in the league during the week there. Also lost out to Miami and Chicago. Alfred Şengün, 24.3 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 1.5 steals. Just continuing to get it done. Again, who'd have thought that you could get 2 guys that were considered culture issues, cancer issues in the respective lockers in Brooks and Van Vliet. They get to the team. They have Ime Udoka, who turns around and goes, see that big talented guy there? Really young guy? We're going to back him in. Get him the ball, you'll get your touches. Who'd have thought buying into a team concept and a talented guy would see results? Houston bouncing back really, really nicely, and considering I thought they were going to be, another draft away, we're talking about a team that's taken the right steps in the right direction to, hey, we can compete for the top 6 teams in the West, if not this year, certainly next. Houston in the right direction, they're doing really well. Şengün doing well. He's the all-star for me off that team, playing really, really nicely indeed. To the Clippers, they're playing really nicely indeed as well. 3-0 on the week, 25-13 over the season. Defeated Phoenix, Toronto, and Memphis. Paul George having another big week. And it's so tough being Paul George. Him and Kawhi went backwards and forwards at the start of this season, battling for the number 1 spot. And Kawhi blew him out of the water there for quite some time as far as the best player on the team. But Paul George has been able to find his groove once again, and he's been hitting his strides, playing some good basketball. 28.3 points, 5.3 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 2.5 steals and 0.5 blocks, 2 turnovers a game, 50-50-90 splits, those Kyrie Irving level splits, those Golden State Klay Thompson level splits. Got to remember, Paul George in his prime is one of the 3 best players in the NBA. Paul George in his prime is one of few people in league history to finish top 3 in scoring, top 3 in MVP, and top 3 in Defensive Player of the Year voting in the same season. That's the level of talent Paul George has. And he's playing next to Kawhi Leonard, who himself has been making an MVP, top 10 MVP case, an All-NBA case, both of these guys. James Harden's buying in. What criticism of Westbrook's dissipated. Zubac is playing well. Clippers just making a run. They're in that next tier. They're in that, if you're going to be tied for the 3rd best team in the league, or you're going to be in that 3rd tier of championship contenders, I think that's where the Clippers are sitting right now. I don't think that they're anywhere near the top 5 teams, but I certainly think they lead that next run. And depending on how they can look going towards the All-Star break, or certainly heading to the middle of the March, will be the question there, and whether we can provide an answer will be the question. Well, whether you can provide an answer to the question of where they sit as a championship team overall, that's where that one sits. I think they're a 3rd level team for a championship contender this season. They're doing better than their other counterparts, despite the fact that they lost to them there at one point. So that 3 in 1 week. I don't know why I've missed that one there. Considering the only win that the Lakers had major this week was against the Clippers, who also beat, the Lakers, beat Toronto as well. Lost to Phoenix 2-1 on the week, 19-20 on the season, and it just continues to show that when you get when you keep getting touches into the best player in your team, you tend to get wins. It's been the same formula here for the Lakers since 2019-20, and I don't want to hear anything to the contrary. When Anthony Davis gets touches, the Lakers win games. Davis, 25.3 points, 8.7 rebounds, 2.7 assists on the week, 1.3 steals, 1.3 blocks, continuing to prove why he's one of, if not the best defender in the NBA. 3 turnovers a game, efficient shooting splits. 67.4 from the field, 40% from deep, 84.2% from the line. I don't have much more to touch on with the Lakers because, to be honest, they really underperform. Always a lot of hype about what kind of team are they bringing together. Is it going to be a decent team? What can they do? Everyone always overplays exactly how well they've done. I didn't think they did anything decent, but they're still sitting around 500, and they look like a better team when Anthony Davis continues to touch the ball. Now, what's the bet in the next week and a bit that we see Anthony Davis have an 11-shot game, and then everyone pile on, despite the fact that, you're not giving the guy any possessions. So we'll see how it goes. I think the Lakers are doing fine. With what they've got, I don't think they're going to be anything special. I don't think that they're a top 6 team in the West, and I don't think the Clippers are going to be too worried there about that one loss that they had to them there, because you've got to match up at some point in the playoffs. If that's not going to happen, then it's not going to matter. Over to Memphis, things have gone from bad to worse, which is really strange considering they went 2-1 on the week. They're 14-24, and I thought they were going to start making a bit of a run here towards 500. Defeated Phoenix, defeated Dallas, so they're, nice, consistent runs here, productive runs. Lost out to the Clippers, one of the better teams in the league. But the problem is now you've got Ja Morant done for the season with an injury, and you're not expecting to see Desmond Bane or Marcus Smart until after the All-Star break, at the very end of February, early March. Bane with a decent week, 23.3 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 0.7 steals, 0.3 blocks, less than 2 turnovers. Efficiency from the floor, not great, but 9 out of 10 from the stripe. So they are still having their moments. But now, all of a sudden, you're looking at a team that, they're not going to be with any decent... They're not going to have, arguably, their 3 best players, at least 2 of them, for 6 weeks. And the other one's done for the season. Memphis going back to the drawing board. I would expect to see them slump over the next few weeks. And they will be very, very thankful for teams such as San Antonio in the West, because they're going to be the only team that's going to hold them off the bottom. The only team that's going to hold them off the bottom. Minnesota 2-2 in the week, 27-11 on the season. They're having a really nice run, as I mentioned. One of the 5 championship contenders for me so far. Defeated Orlando and Portland, lost to Dallas and Boston. Karl-Anthony Towns, surprisingly, I think he's been the 3rd best player on that team this year, but he has been a really handy second option offensively, and he's really embraced that role to understand, this is where the championship contentions are. 25 points, 8.5 rebounds, 3.3 assists, 1.8 steals, 0.5 blocks, 1.5 turnovers. 50-50-90 splits. Really, really good stuff there from Karl-Anthony Towns. Again, if he's going to continue to stand in this role, if he's going to continue to pose in this role as a second option, as a guy who can step up when he needs to, can spread the floor as a big, Minnesota are going to be fine. But it's when Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't and can't buy into the team ethos and what it's about. That's when it becomes a genuine issue there for Minnesota. And if they can avoid that damage right now, then they're going to continue to push on. As I mentioned, one of the 2 best teams in the West. I think they're one of the 5 championship contenders. And they'll be competing with OKC and probably Denver for the rest of the season for that number 1 seed. And the only team at the moment that looks like they're going to knock them off overall for any home court advantage won't be until the finals, and that'll be Boston. So a really interesting look at how things go. And I mean, that'd be really interesting, wouldn't it, seeing that a team in Minneapolis back in the finals competing potentially against a Boston team, which hasn't happened since 1959. A long time since a team in Minneapolis took on a team from Boston. in the NBA Finals. New Orleans, they're making a bit of a sneaky run as well and seem to be making a little bit of noise for people as well. 2-1 on the week, 23-16 on the season. Wins against Sacramento and Golden State, lost to Denver. CJ McCollum clearly showing that he is back following those concerns with his lungs earlier in the season. 18.7 points, 5 rebounds, 6.3 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, less than 2 turnovers, 51.3 from the field, 48% from deep, making 2/3 of his free throws. And it says a lot that CJ McCollum can have that kind of a week and be their best player and they still have a winning record. Because previously, in the last 18 months, if CJ McCollum had been taking all these shots and being the number one option, very, very seldom would you have seen the team anywhere near where they need to be. But here they are. Here they are right now, sitting as one of the Smokies to upset a lot of teams over in the Western Conference. And it's, an interesting mix. Zion's been able to get really good performance out of himself. Same with Ingram. Valanciunas still doing his thing as well. And CJ McCollum still taking shots, but he's becoming a little bit more efficient with it, really picking his spots. And I think that all comes down to the fact that, you've got Zion and you've got Brandon Ingram playing in some really, really good basketball as well. To OKC, 3-0 on the week, 26-11, the best team in the West. Defeated Washington, Miami and Portland, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander continues to lead the way for me as the MVP of this league. 30.3 points, 4.3 rebounds, 5.7 assists, 1.3 steals and a block a game on less than 3 turnovers on the week. Really effective splits as well. 67.3% from the field as a shooting guard. 45.5 from deep. 87% from the free throw line. Just, again, another guy getting it done. But no one's paying any attention because it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and they're a good young team and they're a positionless offense and it's got to be the team. But to me, there's no doubt about it who the MVP in the league is this year. No doubt. That's with Embiid, that's with Jokic, that's with Giannis, that's with Luka. I have no doubt in my mind that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the MVP of this league. And he's playing with a rookie year contender. Great. He's got a really good young squad around him in a positionless offense and everyone's firing. Great. So does that mean that Steph Curry on the 73-9 Warriors shouldn't have been the MVP? Does that mean that Jordan shouldn't have been the MVP of the 72-10 Bulls? Does that mean we don't give Shaq the 2000 MVP? Because if that's the logic, then great. I'll agree with you. But stick true in all of your assessments. I just don't think it's close. I think with what Shai's doing on the offensive end, the legitimate production he brings defensively, and the legitimate efficiency that he brings on both ends, they're winning games. He's the reason they're winning games. To me, he's the MVP. Massive run so far for OKC. Phoenix are getting back in the hunt as well. They're now 2 games above 500, 1-2 on the week, 20-18 on the season. Defeated the Lakers, lost to the Clippers, and lost to the Grizzlies. Kevin Durant with a reasonable week. Bit quieter, but a reasonable week. 23.7 points, 7.3 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, less than 2 turnovers, 50-40-90 splits. Phoenix right now are just starting to hit that groove where we've got all their good players back. We're getting everyone touches, everyone's scoring. They can't stop us. We've got a big guy who passes. They need probably a couple of more rotational pieces, but everyone's been saying that about them all season. That they just need a few more pieces. And they're only rotational pieces, not key pieces, just rotational pieces. Someone that can help slow the game down a little bit, give them some minutes of rest. But Phoenix is just starting to find their feet once again. Continuing to plug through, continuing to get things done. Portland 1-3 on the week, 10-28 on the season. Defeated Brooklyn, lost to the Knicks, the Thunder, and Minnesota. Jeremy Grant, I think he's still been their best player this year. Wasn't necessarily the greatest week for him. 17 points, 1.5 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 0.5 blocks, less than a turnover a game, but inefficient scoring, 41.5 from the field. 33.3 from deep, 81.8 from the free throw line. Portland, again, probably another team Memphis is going to be pretty happy that is about as well, because there's only one team that's worse than them in the West. Just a really strange mix of players when you look at it all overall. Great pieces to be on contending teams. I don't think anyone would say no to Robert Williams when he's healthy on a contending team. I don't think anyone would say no to DeAndre Ayton when healthy on a contending team. Malcolm Brogdon is a key rotational piece. Hell, Jeremy Grant being a nice little rotational piece. but they don't all fit together. It's a jigsaw that needs to be glued together to make a picture, but it's not the one that's on the box. Interesting times for Portland. Sacramento 2-2 in the week, 23-15 on the season. Defeated Detroit and Charlotte, as they should. Lost to New Orleans and Philly. I think that might actually be a pretty key indicator of just where they sit right now. But Sabonis with another week, not quite the 20 and 10 that he had last week, but 23 points, 10.5 rebounds, 7.8 assists there, 3.5 turnovers from the field, but nearly 70% from the field, 60% from deep, 84.6 from the free throw line. I still can't get over the fact people don't think he's the best player in Sacramento. It bewilders me to think people don't think he's the best player on the Kings. There's a reason De'Aaron Fox is getting out of there, and that's because he knows this guy's there and he knows it's his team. And I think if they could settle into that genuine combination of, you know, a Jokic and a Murray, or a Maxey and an Embiid, then you would be looking at a team that's a genuine combo team, a team that could genuinely be one of the three best in the West. Sabonis is that good. However, it's a matter of the rest of the team buying in. I think Sacramento's got into a bit of a worry of, well, if we don't trade De'Aaron Fox, we're not going to get anything for him. Okay, but no one's going to take an expiring contract and have to pay him free agency. And then who's going to want to come to Sacramento? They're talking about getting rid of Keegan Murray. They talked about wanting to get rid of Harrison Barnes, and they didn't do that either. So an interesting time for Sacramento, but I think they need to buy in on the fact that Sabonis is the best player in the team. They have to buy in on the fact that I think Sabonis is one of the 10 best players in the league this year. Like, we're talking about all NBA first team, second team kind of player. One of the three best centers in the league. That's the level of buy-in that Sacramento need to hurry up and get, and they need to get it very quickly. The Spurs 2-1 on the week, 7-30 on the season. Defeated Detroit and Charlotte, as you'd expect. Lost to Cleveland, as you'd expect. Wemby, nice week for him. Probably the best week that he's had as a player in the NBA so far. 22 points, 11 rebounds, 4.7 assists, 0.3 steals, 2.3 blocks, 2 turnovers. 48.8 from the field, 33.3 from deep, 90.9% from the free throw line. If Dejounte Murray goes back, this team is far better. But again, I'll harp on about it more and more every time we talk about the Spurs. Really simple stuff. Replace these young guys who don't know what they're doing with guys who can give guidance to the more talented younger guys. Instantly better by 15 wins. Like, I could call this Spurs team a 20-win team if they had veterans. No doubt about it. With what you've got there, raw talent, absolutely. 20. You could have 20 wins on the board. I'd no drama saying that. I would back this team to be 20-17 right now. No hesitation. No hesitation as to what they could be if they were able to do that. Wemby showing his talent. As someone said, this is meant to be the worst version of Wemby that we get. I'd be frightened if this is the worst version of Wemby that we get. A very, very, very good basketball player. And finally, the only team to go 4-0 on the week, completely undefeated, and they're now to 500. That's the Utah Jazz. 4-0 on the week, defeated Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Denver, and Toronto. A lot of good feathers in a very impressive cap right there. Lauri Markkanen stepping up and making another all-star case again this season. 25.5 points, 12 rebounds, 1.8 assists, 0.5 steals, and a block a game. On 1 turnover, 50-50-90 splits. Utah looked like it last year. They were 12-3. Tailed off because of injuries. Started slow this year because of injuries and mismatch. Now they've got everyone back and they're starting to kick backside. And we just seem to continue to get more people who are confused as to, geez, never saw this coming. You clearly don't pay enough attention to all of the league. Were they going to do it? Weren't they going to do it? Were they going to do it? Weren't they going to do it? Yeah, I had my doubts about them this season. I've said that throughout the season. But we can't sit here and act surprised like this was never going to happen, like we'd never seen it. It's like everyone who was really shocked about OKC and SGA, like last year. Oh my God, can you believe what they're doing? Yeah, I've watched them. It was bound to happen at some point. Difference between Utah and OKC is that OKC have that much draft capital. If things go to crap, they can afford to tank for a year. They can afford to bottom out. Utah don't have that luxury. Now, whether this is going to be noticed knowing that Utah might be looking to clean out, and provide rotational pieces to other teams as the season goes forward. Who knows? But they are playing some good basketball once again, and Laurie Markkinen, the player of the week for me in the West. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Led his team to 4-0 on the week. They're back above 500, and he's playing some really good basketball once again. Really, really simple stuff. When he's firing, when he's got Sexton buying in, when he's got Clarkson buying in, they're a tough team to beat. They were like it last year. They're back to it again this year. They're just doing it at a different time. Really impressive to see from a Utah Jazz perspective right there. Finishing off with the top 10 teams in the West, the Timberwolves, the Thunder and the Nuggets. As I said, I think they're the three leaders in the West for the championship. They're one of 5 teams. 3 of the 5 teams, I think, can win it all. I think you're going to see Minnesota and OKC battle for that number 1 seed. Denver might just sneak in. It depends what kind of experience and losses and whether the gas tank plays a factor in with the Timberwolves and the Thunder. Nuggets third, and I think it's just a matter of getting them home game in the, getting them a home game advantage in the playoffs. It's as simple as that. I think the Clippers are the only other team right now that look like a contender, and they're in that third tier, probably with Philadelphia. Rounding out the Kings at 5th, the Mavs at 6. Of course, you can thank Domantas Sabonis for keeping the Kings where they are. You can thank Kyrie Irving for really helping the Mavericks. The Pelicans starting to click at 7th. People accepting their roles. Looks really good for them. Suns at 8. They're starting to warm up. The Rockets at 9 above 500. And the Jazz just getting to 500 themselves. So things are starting to take a bit more shape in the West. Anyway, guys, that's been me. Thank you very much for tuning in. And thank you for following in on my Week 11 review for the 23-24 NBA season. That's been me, guys. I'm out.